crazy. Iran actually fired missiles at us military base in Qatar. On June 23, 2025, the skies over Qatar shook as Iranian ballistic missiles hurtled toward Udeid Air Base, the largest U.S. base in the Middle East. The deadly barrage tore through fuel depots and barracks, leaving fireballs that lit up the desert night and sent steel tumbling into rubble. Within minutes, 47 American soldiers were dead and more than 160 were wounded. At the time, America's defenses, Patriot interceptors, THAAD batteries, and CRAM guns fought valiantly, shooting down more than 80% of the incoming missiles. But those that got through struck with terrifying precision, turning a night of vigilance into a night of mourning. Within hours, grief turned to rage. President Trump has signed the order. 15 U.S. jets equipped with bunker-buster bombs, 60 destroyer-launched Tomahawk cruise missiles, and a swarm of radar-blinding electronic warfare aircraft roar toward Iran with determination. Their mission: to flatten Iran's most heavily guarded nuclear facilities. What allowed Iran to be so reckless in its attack on the U.S.? Can this U.S. counterattack wipe out Iran's nuclear program overnight? Let's find out. June 23, 2025. The night skies over Qatar were calm, but inside Iran, mobile launchers were rolling into position. At exactly 02:14 local time, the order was given. Within seconds, more than 24 Shahab and Sajil ballistic missiles roared skyward, their fiery tails cutting through the darkness. Each carried a warhead weighing nearly a ton, some high explosive, others designed to fragment into thousands of deadly shards. Their destination: Udeid Air Base, the largest American military installation in the Middle East. The United States had prepared for such a scenario. Surrounding the base was a defensive network of Patriot PAC-3 interceptors, THAAD batteries, and short-range CRAM systems. These technologies were designed to form layered protection. The Patriot system specialized in shooting down incoming ballistic missiles in their terminal phase, while THAAD targeted longer-range threats outside the atmosphere. CRAMs, with their rapid-fire 20mm cannons, were the last line of defense, spitting hundreds of rounds per second to intercept anything that slipped through. When Iranian missiles crossed into Qatari airspace, alarms screamed across the base. Operators inside the control center immediately activated the intercept sequence. Radar screens lit up with dozens of red tracks, more targets than the system had faced in years. Patriot launchers erupted, streaking into the sky. One by one, interceptors met their targets, exploding in brilliant flashes that briefly turned night into day. The THAAD batteries joined the fight, neutralizing warheads at the edge of the atmosphere. In total, nearly 80% of the incoming missiles were destroyed, but 20% still got through. At 02:19, the first warhead slammed into a fuel depot. A fireball ripped across the base, sending shockwaves that shattered windows miles away. Seconds later, another struck a maintenance hangar, collapsing its steel frame like paper. Then the worst. A missile detonated near the barracks. Dozens of American service members were caught in the blast. Nearby civilians in Doha also felt the impact. Shattered glass, collapsing walls, and rising plumes of black smoke visible from the city skyline. The attack lasted less than 10 minutes, but the devastation was enormous. Udeid, once a symbol of American power projection in the Gulf, was now scarred by fire and craters. Soldiers rushed to rescue the wounded, sirens wailed, and communications poured into Washington. The United States had just suffered one of the most serious strikes on its forces in the region since World War II. If America had done nothing, if Washington had simply condemned the attack without striking back, do you believe Iran would have stopped its aggression? Let me know what you think in the comments. Within minutes of the Udeid attack, the Situation Room in Washington turned into a command bunker. Live feeds from Qatar showed flames still raging and casualty figures climbing by the second. By 3 a.m. Eastern Time, the Pentagon confirmed the unthinkable. 47 U.S. service members killed, 162 wounded, and at least 23 Qatari civilians dead from collapsing buildings and secondary explosions. Damage assessments revealed that nearly 40% of the base's fuel reserves had been destroyed and 2 runways rendered unusable. When President Trump stormed in, aides said his face was pale with anger. 47 Americans? He shouted. That's Pearl Harbor on my watch. His words echoed in the tense room, setting the tone for what would follow. The Joint Chiefs laid out options. A limited strike on the missile launchers was possible, but intelligence showed Iran had already relocated 80% of its mobile launchers deep into hardened shelters. Any small-scale retaliation would be symbolic at best. The alternative: a decisive blow against Iran's nuclear facilities, buried beneath mountains and reinforced concrete. Some advisors warned of escalation, reminding the president that Iran could mobilize over 500,000 troops and disrupt global oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz. But the counter-argument was stark. If America failed to respond, every U.S. base in the Middle East, housing over 40,000 American personnel, would be at risk of the same fate. The debate ended when Trump slammed his fist onto the table. They killed 47 of our people. They want war? Fine. We'll erase their nuclear program from the map. His order was simple, final, and absolute. The Pentagon received immediate authorization. A retaliatory strike package was drafted that same night, one of the most ambitious since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The clock to America's counterstrike had started ticking. Before knowing what weapons America will use to attack, please support me by liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's witness history with me. The Pentagon moved with the speed of a war machine that had been waiting for this very moment. Within 6 hours of the president's order, planners at Central Command drafted Operation Iron Vengeance, a strike package designed not to punish Iran, but to cripple its nuclear program beyond repair. The numbers alone were staggering. 15 F-15E Strike Eagles and F-35A stealth fighters were assigned as the primary attackers, each carrying up to two 5,000-pound GBU-28 bunker buster bombs. Supporting them were 4 KC-135 Stratotanker refueling aircraft loaded with over 800,000 pounds of jet fuel, ensuring the strike group could reach and return without pause. 3 EA-18G Growlers, America's premier electronic warfare jets, were tasked with blinding Iran's air defense radars across hundreds of miles. But the air package was only the beginning. From submarines lurking in the Arabian Sea and destroyers positioned in the Gulf, the Navy prepared to unleash nearly 60 Tomahawk cruise missiles, each programmed to hit command centers, radar stations, and communications hubs. At the same time, long-range missile units readied 12 ballistic missiles tipped with 2,000-pound conventional warheads, their accuracy refined to within a few feet by GPS guidance. Intelligence support added another layer. 7 reconnaissance satellites shifted orbits to track Iranian radar sweeps, while 20 surveillance drones hovered along Iran's borders, transmitting live video and electronic data back to command centers in Qatar and Florida. Every Iranian move was being mapped in real time. To coordinate it all, a forward operations team of over 600 personnel was flown into Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE, turning it into a temporary strike hub. By midnight on June 24th, the entire system, jets, ships, satellites, and missiles, was synchronized like a conductor raising his baton. The message was clear. Iran's attack on Al Udeid had lit a fuse, and America was about to deliver a blow measured not in words, but in megatons of firepower. Stay with me. What happened next would turn the quiet desert night into a firestorm the world would never forget. Midnight, June 24th, 2025. From the dark waters of the Arabian Sea, the strike began. The silence was shattered as dozens of Tomahawk cruise missiles arced into the night sky, launched from U.S. Navy destroyers and submarines. Each missile, 20 feet long and weighing nearly 3,000 pounds, flew just above treetop level at nearly 550 miles per hour, too low for most radar to detect. Within minutes, Iranian air defense stations along the southern coast lit up with explosions as command centers and radar dishes were obliterated in precision strikes. At the same time, 3 EA-18G Growlers swept into Iranian airspace. Their role was not to kill, but to blind. Using powerful jamming pods, the Growlers projected electronic noise that confused Iranian radar operators. Screens inside Iranian command bunkers turned into seas of static. Sophisticated systems like the Russian-made S-300 surface-to-air missile batteries were rendered useless, unable to lock onto targets. One Iranian officer reportedly shouted into his headset, "We are blind, we cannot see them." Moments later, The main strike package arrived. 15 F-15E Strike Eagles and F-35A stealth fighters roared in at medium altitude. The stealth F-35s, almost invisible to radar thanks to their radar-absorbing skin and angular design, slipped deep into Iranian territory. Each carried 2 GBU-28 bunker buster bombs, massive laser-guided weapons designed to punch through 20 feet of reinforced concrete before detonating. The first bombs hit the Natanz nuclear facility. Seismic sensors across the region recorded the shock as 5,000 pounds of explosives tunneled deep underground before erupting in a fireball. Reinforced doors, blast walls, and layers of granite collapsed like sand. Within seconds, one of Iran's most fortified nuclear sites was reduced to rubble. Meanwhile, the F-15E Strike Eagles unleashed their payloads on the Fordow enrichment plant, hidden beneath the mountain. Precision-guided munitions, guided by satellites and onboard laser targeting pods, drilled into the earth. Witnesses miles away described the ground shaking as if struck by an earthquake. Entire underground complexes collapsed, burying hundreds of Iranian soldiers and technicians alive. Then came the second wave. 12 U.S. long-range ballistic missiles, each carrying a 2,000-pound warhead, descended from the upper atmosphere at Mach 5, nearly 4,000 miles per hour. With such speed, there was no time for interception. They slammed into facilities near Arak and Isfahan, annihilating workshops, centrifuge halls, and storage bunkers. The scale of destruction was beyond anything Iran had prepared for. Fireballs towered hundreds of feet into the air, painting the night sky orange. Entire facilities that had taken decades to build were wiped out in less than 25 minutes. Casualty reports later estimated over 2,000 Iranian military personnel killed or wounded, along with scores of nuclear scientists and engineers. For U.S. pilots, the mission was clockwork. Not a single American aircraft was lost. The combination of stealth, electronic warfare, and precision-guided munitions had left Iran's defenses powerless. The attack was so overwhelming, so technologically superior, that by dawn, much of Iran's nuclear infrastructure no longer existed. The world awoke to headlines declaring, "America strikes back, Iran's nuclear program in ruins." All of Iran's previous decisions are now too late to regret. The morning after the strike, Iran was not only wounded militarily, it was humiliated strategically. Intelligence confirmed the country's nuclear program had been set back at least 15 years, but the deeper impact was psychological. For decades, Iran's leaders had claimed their defenses were impenetrable. In less than 30 minutes, America proved otherwise. The cost was staggering: over 2,300 dead, billions in destroyed infrastructure, and the sudden collapse of decades of nuclear ambition. But the true damage lay in credibility. Tehran's promises of strength to its people and allies were exposed as hollow. In capitals across the Middle East, rulers quietly recalculated their positions, realizing that provoking Washington carried consequences no regional alliance could offset. For the United States, the operation carried its own lessons. The ability to coordinate jets, satellites, submarines, and ballistic missiles across 3 continents underscored America's unmatched global reach. Yet it also highlighted the fragile balance of deterrence. One attack had triggered a devastating retaliation, reminding the world how quickly localized wars can ignite into international crises. Markets trembled, oil surged, and diplomats scrambled. But within the storm was a message tailored for both friend and foe. America would not allow its soldiers to die in vain, nor permit adversaries to threaten its power unchecked. For the older generation of Americans watching the news, the echoes of history were unmistakable. From Pearl Harbor to 9/11, each time America was struck, the response was overwhelming. June 2025 joined that lineage. The lesson was clear: technology may evolve, alliances may shift, but one constant remains. If America is attacked, the retaliation will come fast, precise, and decisive. Iran had gambled on testing America's resolve. The result was not just defeat, but a cautionary tale written in fire for the entire world. The chain of events from June 23rd to June 25th, 2025, will be remembered as one of the most dramatic military confrontations of the 21st century. Iran's missile barrage on Al Udeid Air Base killed 47 American service members, wounded 162 more, and left 23 Qatari civilians dead. A shocking attack that shook both Washington and the world. Yet in less than 72 hours, America's answer transformed the battlefield. The U.S. strike destroyed 4 of Iran's 5 major nuclear facilities, killed over 1,300 Iranian soldiers and scientists, and inflicted more than $15 billion in damage to Tehran's strategic infrastructure. What took Iran 30 years to build was reduced to rubble in less than 30 minutes. The sheer speed and scale of the response reminded every adversary that America's military power, once unleashed, is beyond comparison. But the true lesson went deeper. For Iran, the attack revealed the danger of reckless provocation. For the United States, it proved the enduring importance of readiness, alliances, and technology. And for the rest of the world, it was a warning of how quickly regional conflicts can ignite global crises. Oil prices spiking 22% in a single day, being just one ripple effect of a single night of war. Older Americans who lived through Pearl Harbor, the Cuban Missile Crisis, Vietnam, and 9/11 saw history repeat itself. Whenever America is struck, the retaliation is decisive, overwhelming, and unforgettable. The message from June 2025 is now carved in history. To attack the United States is to invite destruction on a scale no nation can endure. If you want more stories like this, filled with shocking numbers and lessons from modern warfare, make sure to subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. Your support helps us bring you the truth about the battles shaping our world.